Whoa, hey. Who are you?
My name is Anissa, and I'm an agent of the Viltrumite Empire. And if you think you can cross the space between us before I tear this woman's head from her body.
Those who have only seen the Invincible animated series know her as a ruthless Viltrumite, while those who have read the comics recognize her as one of the most despicable villains in pop culture. No matter your perspective, we're here to give you the full story of Anissa in this video. Just a heads up, there are major spoilers ahead. To kick things off, the key thing to know about Anissa's origins is that she's essentially your typical pure-blood Viltrumite warrior. She has all the qualities you'd expect from someone of her species. For one, she's long-lived, having existed for hundreds of years even before the start of the series. On top of that, like most pure-blooded Viltrumites, Anissa went through the Empire's brutal indoctrination process, which turned her into a true force on the battlefield. Basically, a living weapon built for war. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to my channel for more in-depth breakdowns like this. After Nolan killed the Guardians of the Globe, beat his son to a bloody pulp, and seemingly left the Big Blue Marble for good, the rest of the Viltrumite Empire caught wind of what had happened on Earth. This prompted them to find a replacement Viltrumite conqueror to subdue the planet, and so they decided to continue their conquest of Earth. Who better to handle the job than his Viltrumite son, Mark Grayson, the superhero known as Invincible. This is where Anissa comes in, and you see that she was tasked with convincing Mark to take over his father's old role and bring Earth to heel in the name of the Viltrumite Empire, as is the way of her people. She paid Mark an unwelcome visit while the half-Viltrumite boy was having a quiet lunch with his mom, Debbie. Of course, Anissa knew that Mark wouldn't just fit her into his schedule, so to force his cooperation, she essentially held Debbie hostage. This left Mark with no choice but to agree to speak with her. They flew high into the sky, where Anissa informed Mark that he should help the Viltrumite Empire assimilate Earth. And what a sales pitch it was. She claimed that having Earth join the Empire would eliminate war, sickness, and death on the planet. To appeal to Mark's soft side, she even shared what happened to the Viltrumites when the Scourge virus was unleashed on them. By this point, it was clear that Anissa was acting more as an envoy than an enforcer. This became even more evident when she volunteered to assist Mark after Cecil Stedman called him for help rescuing a cruise ship under attack by a kaiju. You might think that Anissa was proving to be a decent diplomat, until you find out what she did after the kaiju incident. During the mission, Anissa essentially did Invincible's job for him. However, after dealing with the crisis, she and Mark resumed their conversation about him joining the Empire. Mark ultimately refused, and at that moment, it became clear that Anissa was no different from the rest of her species. Upon hearing his refusal, she issued him a so-called warning about what would happen if he continued to resist the Empire's advances. She told him that in 5 months, or 5 years, another Viltrumite agent would check in on him, and they would not be as reasonable as she had been. So that's the Viltrumite way of being reasonable. Wow. Ultimately, Anissa left Mark and returned to the Viltrumite mothership, where she reported the results of her negotiations to her superior, Craig. Despite Mark's firm refusal to join the Empire, Anissa was convinced that he would come around sooner or later, especially once he realized the consequences of defying them. 6 months had passed before Anissa and Mark crossed paths again. It was already a bad day for Mark. He and Eve had just broken up. Little did he know, things were about to get even worse. Anissa approached Mark and told him about the Viltrumite interbreeding initiative, something she was struggling with due to her reluctance to mate with regular humans. Mark, uninterested, simply wished her luck and was about to leave, until Anissa told him that he was the only person on Earth she deemed suitable to mate with. Mark refused, but Anissa was relentless. When she realized persuasion wouldn't work, things took a horrifying turn. She overpowered Mark in a brutal attack, leading to one of the most disturbing moments in mainstream comics. Despite his best efforts to fight back, Mark was no match for her pure-blooded Viltrumite strength. Later, Anissa found Monster Girl unconscious in space after she had been ejected from an airlock by Robot, who had become Earth's supreme dictator. Mark encountered Anissa again at the Viltrumite moon base, and for the first time, he froze in fear at the sight of his abuser. If that wasn't enough, she continued to emotionally and psychologically torment him during their encounters. Shortly after, Anissa accompanied Nolan to negotiate with Robot, who had agreed to a truce that prevented any hostilities between them. When Mark learned about this, he lashed out, attacking Robot's drone, but Nolan convinced him to stop. Anissa attempted to help Mark to his feet after the fight, but he refused any interaction with her. The breaking point came when Mark ran into Anissa again. Overcome with pent-up rage and trauma, he slammed her against a wall, choking her in a blind fury. Nolan tried to intervene, but Mark was too far gone, until Anissa smirked and taunted him, saying that getting physical only turned her on. Mark froze in shock, horrified by her words. In the end, he let her go, keeping what she had done to him a secret from Nolan. Years later, Mark found himself trapped in another dimension. When he finally returned, 5 years had passed. In that time, Anissa had fully adapted to life on Earth. She found a human partner named Scott, and they had a daughter together. But more importantly, during Mark's absence, Anissa had given birth to Mary, the child conceived from her assault on him. Anissa tried to visit Mark at his family home in Talescria to tell him about their child. But the moment she stepped inside, Eve attacked her, knowing exactly what she had done to Mark. However, after years of holding on to his trauma, Mark just wanted to move on. He stopped Eve from beating Anissa, with Nolan helping defuse the situation. When Nolan demanded an explanation, Mark downplayed everything, saying Anissa had done nothing to him. Nolan accepted his son's words and ordered Anissa to leave. Despite everything, Anissa had genuinely changed. She confessed to Scott that her old self, the one who upheld strict Viltrumite values, scared her now. She was grateful to have embraced Earth's ways and become someone she considered a better person. However, just as she was settling into this new life, she received a call from Nolan about an impending war. Thrag, now an extremist, had built an army of half-Viltrumite children and was preparing to take Earth for himself. Anissa answered the call to arms, standing alongside the other Viltrumites loyal to Nolan. The war was brutal. Thrag and his army arrived near Earth's orbit, where Nolan, Mark, Anissa, and the other Viltrumites met them in battle. In the chaos, Thrag killed Nolan, devastating Mark. Meanwhile, Eve left the safety of their base to retrieve Nolan's body, but was nearly devoured by a Ragnar, a monstrous alien capable of killing even pure-blooded Viltrumites. At the last moment, Anissa intervened, saving Eve but suffering fatal injuries in the process. As Eve shielded her in a protective energy bubble, Anissa, barely clinging to life, told her to tell Mark that she was sorry for what she had done. However, she admitted she had no regrets because it led to Mary's birth. Eve urged her to hold on and tried to fly her to the medbay, but Anissa succumbed to her wounds before they arrived. Despite her dark past, something good did come from Anissa's story. In the final issue of Invincible, it was revealed that Mary took up her father's mantle, becoming Kid Invincible. While Anissa's life was filled with controversy and destruction, at least a glimmer of hope remained through her daughter, marking the end of one of Invincible's most complex and divisive characters.